What is going on, everybody? On here, and I want to do a quick video on Spider-Man, how we got here, where I think it's going, and a little bit of the shit show that's here. And I do want to talk about the Final Fantasy Holiday version. I do have allocations from multiple distributors, but more importantly, I have some insight on what the total population of the print runs looks like. So, first and foremost, Spider-Man. And the disaster that Spider-Man has, and I want to intertwine the magnitude of impact on the market that Amazon has, because I'm not sure that a whole lot of folks quite understand just what's going on. And I've mentioned this for a while now that Wizards of the Coast wants to go more direct to consumer and less through distribution. So with Spider-Man, we got effectively the same number of collector boxes through distribution as what Edge of Eternities did. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, good. The print runs relatively tight. No big deal. And then we got allocated a lot more tightly than Edge of Eternities, but we know with relative certainty, a lot of the massive accounts, they got their full amount, and some of the smaller stores and mid-sized stores just got whacked. Is what it is. It's the way the game works. So then we saw a lot of the product selling on Amazon, direct to consumer, and Final Fantasy was an absolute raging success for Wizards of the Coast because they were able to print money on Amazon and sell again. If they're selling collector boxes to distribution, so something like this, call it $300, just using round numbers. Distribution's probably paying $250, $240, whatever the number is. But if they're selling through Amazon, and they're effectively getting full price minus whatever their negotiated fee is, which is probably somewhere between 5 and 7%. Most normal people without volume discounts are paying, I think, 13%. So what makes Spider-Man kind of the perfect storm of disaster is WotC came out and said, look, there are not going to be any serialized cards in the set. Now, we've heard a couple different rumors. I've put out a theory that perhaps they couldn't do the serialized cards because they had to change printing facilities to the US because of the tariff risk, because Edge of Eternities and Spider-Man were both printed in the USA. I've also heard that Asmodee potentially has a license, or Fanatics, quite honestly, has a license with Disney and Marvel and some sort of exclusivity on serialized cards. Probably more likely, quite honestly. But the fact that WotC hasn't come out and clarified the situation and said, hey, look, we wanted to, we couldn't for whatever reason. And I understand there's probably a non-disclosure involved. But just talk about the print run, or just say, hey, the print runs are similar to what they've been in Aether Drift, Tarkir, Innistrad Remastered. I almost forgot the name of the set. Just throw a bone out there, because the problem with WotC and where they fail, their communication sucks, because unless it's kind of positive echo chamber, positive spin, they kind of shy away from it. But something like this could just quell the angry mob, if you will. And if they say nothing, then everybody assumes the worst. So it kind of is what it is. So once that came out, we had a little bit of a cascade effect. So once the boxes started to hit the fives, all of the folks that are botting Amazon, scalping Amazon, whatever term you want to call them, mostly people that are running automated checkouts, they panicked because now that you can't quickly flip for a profit, now you have liquidity concerns, because a lot of these folks, they just do this as a hobby. They're not sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital. They're just running through the credit card. So there was a massive panic and a massive amount of canceled orders, which brings us to the next step. About the week of release, so right around the 20th, 19th, 20th, we received a call from all of our distributors saying, hey, we're getting a second wave of Spider-Man collector boosters. How many do you want? And generally, for a hot product, this second wave would come with increased pricing. This one didn't. This was the same base distribution price. And none of my reps seemed to know where it came from. And I had one rep who's like, hey, it got stuck in customs. We immediately knew that's bullshit because they were printed in the USA. There are obviously no customs there. I think what actually happened, if you look at Wizards of the Coast and you look at the way that their financials work, their Q3 ends September 30th. I think their quarterly report comes out October 23rd. When they sell product through Amazon direct to consumer, the consumer has to pay for the product. So their credit card has to be charged and the transaction has to be consummated. Now, I don't know if they have to have the product delivered or if it's just a commitment to deliver. Either way, it's kind of a rounding error because you're talking about a day or so. But since they had all these mass cancellations, Amazon is treated as consignment. So even though WotC's sending product to Amazon through their distribution hub, it is not revenue to Wizards of the Coast until that end user takes delivery of the product and they book the product and the credit card payment is charged. So with these mass cancellations, now all of a sudden you have an unwinding of millions of dollars of revenue, and quite honestly, millions of dollars of profit, where Wizards of the Coast looked at it and said, holy shit, we got a problem. So what did they do? They took all of this product that they had earmarked selling through Amazon direct to consumer, and they panic sold it to distribution. So for those of you who don't know, distribution buys it. So they are buying it from Wizards of the Coast. The second distribution buys it, it's revenue. It's revenue margin. Now, the margin is much lower than what it is if they're selling direct to consumer, but it affords them the ability to book the revenue. And then whatever distribution sells it to stores like myself, then the distribution company takes, they're allowed to record the revenue and the profit, etc. But the Amazon dump was exacerbated because WotC panicked and they had to push all this product to distribution because they had to book revenue. They had a massive problem on their hands because of all these cancellations. And quite honestly, they probably thought they had their quarter made until they didn't, until the product was an absolute flaming dumpster fire because they never disclosed that there weren't going to be any serialized cards and they just failed to manage expectations of folks. So that brings me to where we are today. So now Amazon still has all this product. So the product they're selling is probably the safety stock that these guys held back. Again, it is the end of Q or the beginning of Q4. So there's really not a whole lot of reason for them to fire sale the product other than they have to pay for storage. So, and again, when they send product to Amazon, there is product presumably in a centralized warehouse, probably the Wizards of the Coast warehouse that's earmarked for Amazon, where they can feed the machine as it sells through. And then once it goes in Amazon supply chain, it just gets dispersed throughout all of the local and regional distribution facilities. Once it's there, it's gone. There's no pulling it back. It's just going to go. It's going to churn and burn at whatever the price is. So, potentially that could be what some of this is as well. It's just been in the supply chain. And now they figured out what to do with it. Because, look, ultimately, you don't want to dump the product if you're selling through distribution, because then you shoot yourself in the foot. It could have been, one of many reasons. So now we have Spiderman dumps on Amazon, which we haven't seen in a long time, which, again, leads me to believe that this is entirely panic. And we have pricing of the collector boxes in the high 480s. So what's interesting is distribution price on these, again, is somewhere around $300. So you pull 13% out of this is what, $50, $65. So you're still making $100 and some bucks on each one of these. So it's not like it's no margin. But what's interesting is there are 732 of these for sale, which is a lot. And the sales have slowed down a little bit. But quite honestly, I like the set. I like the cards. I'm not a Spider-Man fan. I don't know what the playability is because, quite honestly, I don't have time to play games anymore. But this is an opportunity, unlike any that we've seen in a long time, because the IP is going to stand on its own. And we have the second pump coming in March for the June set. As most of you know, there is a long ass spoiler cycle, hype cycle, if you will, for the next sets for Wizards of the Coast. So with the next Marvel set coming out in June, I think by March of 2026, which is only 6 months away, these things are going to be hyped to high hell with the next set coming out, people looking back at wanting these. And there should be enough of this churning through the system where, we're only looking at 200 or 300 for sale, not 700. And I would anticipate the boxes to kind of retrace somewhere back into the 700s, maybe even 800s at that point in time. But the fact that you can buy a lot of it right now, the price is relatively cheap. You don't have to buy it on here. I mean, who knows what the price even is? I mean, it could be dead money at $500 when we come to Cyber Monday with 10, 13%, whatever cash back. And then, who knows what happens? It gets crazy. So moving on, Spider-Man Play. So I actually got 2 cases of sleeved Spider-Man Play boosters today. I didn't even know that they were a thing. But this product must have been rejected by big box stores so bad that sleeve boosters of Magic the Gathering are pushing through regular distribution, which is great to see. Because now big box stores are starting to reject product, and it's starting to get a little choosy. So with play boxes, distribution, just assume distribution price on these is $120. So you're talking $720 of distribution cost per case. So you take $780 and 13% off this, you're sitting at $680. You're $40 underwater. So these are being sold below distro price, which is an absolute abomination as to how bad the product is just being received. And again, it's Wizards of the Coast not managing expectations, and people don't like surprises. And when you have folks that are putting up a ton of money banking on there being serialized cards and they're not serialized cards, this is what happens. You get your face ripped off, and it is what it is. And I think the scariest part about this is I'm starting to see Wizards of the Coast start to get a little loosey-goosey, if you will, with how they're printing cards, quantities, lazy-ass SKUs. And they're getting sloppy again. It almost feels like they're starting to get desperate. And I don't want to say it's back to the Cynthia Morris. You see what I did there? The Cynthia Williams, Philip Morris days, where they just print so much shit. You have, I think the jumpstart with Avatar is fine, but then you have all the intro products, and to some extent, it's necessary. But the holiday Final Fantasy set, in my view, and again, we don't have a lot of information, but it looks like the laziest sets in Double Feature. The reskin Commander decks is just like, who cares? And speaking of Commander decks, when I was talking to a couple Wizards of the Coast employees, this is probably 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, they made a comment that they thought that the collector sample packs were coming out of Commander decks. And and I didn't quite know what they were saying. And they're like, no, we think they're coming out because they can't. It's taking too long to insert the pack in for them to print the Commander displays. And I'm like, okay, well, these guys are younger. They might not know what they're talking about. They know exactly what they're talking about, because with Lorman, they've taken those sample packs out of the the Commander displays, which takes any variability out of them whatsoever. It is a grave mistake, and they're doing it so they can print more and print faster. So WotC being a bunch of whores is starting to rear its ugly head. Between Final Fantasy, and now look, the Final Fantasy reskin product, which is the laziest product ever with the Commander deck. Now there is a Commander sample pack in there, but it's just different pictures on the same cards. They're pushing product out, and they're now again diluting the quality of the product. And this is what you see again. You're down to this $140 below distro price net. Now here, not quite. You take 13% off. You're what, $17 off plus another 10 to ship 27 off. Yeah, you're right at cost. So even the single boxes are being sold for cost right now, with the rate on, or with the fee on TCG Player. So yeah, it's a little bit of a disaster. And I think, when we look at Avatar, the price of those boxes are coming down too. I think the IP is weak, quite honestly. Well, I shouldn't say it's weak; it's narrow. There are going to be a bunch of people who like it, but yeah, you're going to go from that to Lorwyn, which is going to be a good set. People are going to like it, and then you're going to go to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. For those of you who didn't see, I guess they're spoiling this on the 10th at Comic-Con, but there were pictures of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles van, which quite honestly looked badass. It looked like the Turtles van from the 90s cartoon. But it's clearly a Nickelodeon product. And for those of you who don't know, they have licensing with Nickelodeon because they have Avatar, they've done SpongeBob, now they're doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There've been a bunch of one-off secret layers. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in these sets. I mean, it's going to be niche-y, somewhat cool, I guess. But like, the IP keeps getting more and more narrow. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Avatar. I mean, you're now fishing for a niche product in a niche pool of potential customers, and you're probably starting to alienate the folks that are just in Magic for Magic. So, anyway, that being said, I want to talk holiday gift bundles and Final Fantasy holiday product. So, I can delete this note because I have it. I have some numbers from distribution, and I've gotten these numbers from multiple distributors, and they all line up. So the average collector box print run, if we assume it's 250,000, which I think a lot of people are comfortable with, and let's say it's 300,000, because it could be Spiderman, it could be Edge of Eternities. This is effectively based on the number of collector boxes that distribution had gotten for Edge of Eternities and Spider-Man before the second wave of Spider-Man, because that number was reasonably close to the same. So what I believe to be true is about 60% of those, 60% of that number, they're getting in Chocobo bundles. So, if somebody's getting 20,000 collector boxes, they're getting 12,000 Chocobo bundles. And again, giving you these numbers for relative magnitude, this is a specialty set. This is not a normal standard set or a UB set. But so you have some idea of what's out there. The scene boxes, 32% of collector boxes. It's really all I can compare it to, because scene boxes and the Japanese bundles, it really doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. So scene boxes, 32% of the average number of collector boxes are getting. And again, you can plug these numbers in with any estimate you want to have some idea of how many of these there are to go around. And again, this is only based on distribution. And I caveat that because the biggest unknown is we don't know how many boxes are going to Amazon direct to consumer. And there's not a whole hell of a lot of margin in here, and there's no serialized cards, and the Chocobo bundle looks lazy. I personally am not a fan yet. You can put cool pictures on cards. That doesn't sell me. I'm more of a what's the chase, what can it be in the future type of guy. And I mean, maybe there's some new cards for playability. I'm not sure we know yet. But moving on, Japanese bundles. Why do you keep making these fucking Japanese bundles? Nobody wants Japanese cards. Nobody cares. And then you print them in small numbers. They're not even collectible. There's nothing special about them. Yes, you have the Japanese Black Chocobo, but you can get those in the regular collector boxes for Final Fantasy. 12% of those. And then this was the most interesting for me. The Commander reskins, only 8% of the average collector box run they're getting here, which puts us at 24,000 of these. I'm guessing these Commander reskins, they've held back a lot more of these for distribution or for Amazon than the rest of this product. But I wanted you guys to see what the relative magnitude is here, because each one of these is significantly less than what we've seen for collector boxes, for Edge of Eternities, and for Spider-Man. But again, the missing piece is how much in addition to this is sitting at Amazon, either coming back to distribution because it can't sell on Amazon, or it's just going to sell through Amazon at some point. The unfortunate part is I think the hype is pretty muted at this point. And if there's no chase in this, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. So anyway, guys, hopefully this video is helpful. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord. We will be selling these in Discord to our subs. And have a good night.